Welcome to the next edition of Grid Pulse. I'm Bryce Yonker with Grid Forward. We're here live with Conor Prochaska from the U.S. Department of Energy. Conor, thanks for being with us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Bryce. Excited to chat.
So you've got a role that spans a few tenures at federal agencies and industry. Tell us a little bit about your background and what led you into this current post.
Yeah, great question. I started my career as a naval intelligence officer where I hunted submarines and then spent some time doing counter weapons of mass destruction for the Defense Threat Reduction Agency out of Fort Belvoir. Did law school, unfortunately, and ended up when Rick Perry became the Secretary of Energy, his team reached out asking if I'd be interested in joining the team. I did. It was a great opportunity. It is a great organization. A lot of people don't realize what the Department of Energy actually is. It is the Department of Energy, but it's really the Department of Nuclear Weapons and National Security and the Department of Science and Technology across all the energy domains, but all our basic sciences from studying dark matter and neutrinos out at Fermi Lab all the way to the classic energy applications that you think about, from geothermal to nuclear fusion and fission.
We'll dive more into the agency, but before we do, let's chat a little bit about what's going on in the overall industry, the overall ecosystem. And it's hard to not start in the surge for demand.
Sure.
Right. So the last couple years, let's say 2 to 3 years, has seen a surge in demand unlike anything I've seen in my career. And unless you've been involved in the industry for quite some decades, we haven't seen for some time. How does the sector rise to meet the occasion of this opportunity that also comes with some challenges?
Well, I think the first thing is exactly what the Secretary's done. This isn't necessarily the sector, but the Secretary of Energy in the White House is, first, let's stop taking generation off the grid. Let's add to it. And the first step is making sure that we're not losing anymore, that we can be additive and not subtracting power from the country. It's a great opportunity and it's a great signal that we do have this power demand coming down the tracks in the United States, because it's directly associated with economic growth and economic success. And so the fact that the department or that the United States is having this energy demand climb should be seen as a very positive thing, not a negative thing. Now, the question is what do we need to do to make sure that we are prepared for the demand as it comes down the line? And there's a lot of opportunities, but there's specific technologies out there that really can move the needle. And I'm thinking about bringing back our nuclear renaissance, bringing back the nuclear energy fission portfolio of the United States. I am a huge believer in fusion energy. I don't think it's 25 years away. I think we're coming at it, and we've got a slew of private industry that's doing remarkable work across the United States in that. And I think that is going to exponentially speed up the development and the activation of fusion energy across the United States and in the world, which will be a huge game changer. And then obviously there's geothermal power. There's how do we work and research and do more development to ensure that we have better grid resiliency around the country and work to that. And ARPA-E, specifically the Advanced Research Projects Agency of the Department of Energy, we work in each area there. We work on transmission, we work in efficiency, and we work in generation. So everything on that life cycle and on that flow are areas that we are working on.
Well, let's jump into ARPA-E. What is the mission and what's going on there? What are you guys prioritizing? As well as how can the industry engage with what you guys are working on and doing?
Well, I like to say that the ARPA-E mission is the 3 U's. We look at the unexplored, the unknown, and the unwanted. And the unwanted sounds a little harsh, but it's things that aren't necessarily on the research roadmaps of the bigger offices or the bigger departments around the country or universities. And so we want to look at those. And I take geothermal and our super hot program that we are announcing here as a perfect example. Super hot, we're trying to go 400 degrees Celsius and above, whereas most things are down in the 300 level. But it's an area that is somewhat unbelievable because most people in the industry say that it's too hot to get concrete to cure at that type of temperature. And so issues there. It's not necessarily on the roadmap of some of the bigger geothermal offices, specifically the geothermal office itself. And so it's somewhat unwanted. So it's unwanted and unbelievable. And if we can unlock something and we find something, That's great. Then we're going to go help educate the other offices and the other research activities around the department and around the federal government and around the country on what we've learned. And so that's ARPA-E's role. ARPA-E's role is when somebody's barreling down the highway on a research roadmap, our job is to take the exit routes and go see if there's anything out there that needs to be scouted and discovered to make sure we have a full picture of the possibilities that exist. And the energy need right now needs those unexplored areas to be checked out. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And then we move on. That's what an ARPA-E does. That's what ARPAs do.
And how do you fit in the overall umbrella of the agency? DOE is big and expansive, 17 national labs, lots of different arms of the organization, not only basic research, but, partnerships with industry. How are you all aligning and rowing in the same direction over there?
Well, like I just said, so with kind of the roadmaps, right? So if a organization, let's take the Office of Nuclear Energy, for instance, they come out with their roadmap. We look at that roadmap. We have in our statute that we can't duplicate efforts. So we're not going to do the same thing they're doing. We're going to look at that roadmap and see where our program directors working with their program directors can explore different areas that maybe aren't on that, I keep saying the word roadmap, but on that technology research agenda and see if there's something additional out there. But also we fund and work with all 17 of our national labs. We work with the universities. We work with small companies. And critically, ARPA-E is not a basic science institution. We aren't just doing experiments and science projects. We have a tech to market team and we have a mandate to work towards commercialization and to go actually make something impactful. The saying we use all the time is, if it works, will it matter? And part of will it matter is, can we get it into the hands of consumers? Can it affect affordability around the country? Can it add more electrons to our grid? Can it make our grid more resilient? Those are the impacts that we want to accomplish and attack. And you don't do that by just doing science experiments. And so part of ARPA-E's mandate is to do just that, to make sure we're paying attention of what the impact can be.
So I want to talk about a few of the areas where it feels like innovation can really help bring some breakthroughs. One of them is on critical supply chains. So good luck getting your hands timely on, a transformer, substation components, turbines, even switchgear and some other aspects. How can we expand domestic production? How can innovation help break through some unlock in these capacity constrained areas that are necessary if we're going to meet the needs of the day?
Yeah, well, first is identifying a lot of these areas. Take the transformers, for instance. Every one is very bespoke and different. And to your point, the wait time to have them manufactured, not here in our own country really right now. These are issues that just need to be highlighted and recognized. And then there's everything in that from, can they be more uniform so that there isn't a unique supply demand that has to occur, to can we get the materials and the minerals and the things that are needed for development of, in this case, transformers, but a lot of things. And we're exploring that. I mean, it's a need, it's a recognized issue and problem. And so ARPA-E is looking at what can we do so that your transformers and your substations now don't look like the exact same substations that people 100 years ago would recognize, which is true right now. They look the exact same. We haven't really developed it. To your point where you kicked off this podcast, we haven't needed it because we've had plenty of energy and we've been blessed with that. The U.S. grid is a blessing to the prosperity of the country, but we also need to recognize that it needs to evolve if we're going to be able to keep up with the demand pace that's coming down the tracks.
And on the demand increase, a lot of folks are looking at the surge in large loads, data centers in particular, and they're looking for quick power supply, right?
Sure.
It's all about how do they connect as quickly as possible. Is there areas where collaboration can bring us better outcomes? How do we get more flexibility from these large loads? I mean, I know that may be a broader question than stuff that you guys are directly involved in, but it just seems like one of those aspects that needs to advance.
I think it again, if we go through from the demand, the supply, and the generation, we work in all of it at ARPA-E. As a department, it's very prevalent in discussions, and we clearly see the need. And it's working with those partners. This isn't going to just be a government solution. It's working with our partners, whether it's the hyperscalers, whether it's the utilities, or whether it's people that are working to build new fission plants around the country, and unlocking their capability to do that, their capability to work together, and their capability to work with the government all at once. And traditionally the government has been an inhibitor in a lot of these places, and how we can free that up and work with our partners on the private industry side to make sure they're successful, and not just so they're successful for the sake of being successful, but successful American companies being successful in this race in AI and in the economy in general. It's beneficial to the entire United States of America, our citizens who we serve.
I want to talk a little bit about timelines, because I think ARPA-E works on unique timelines and DOE works on unique timelines. But breakthroughs in the energy space, they can take a little bit of time to come to market. What does that mean? And how do we compress those timelines? Because, a lot of needs are pretty pressing at this juncture right now.
Well, I think it's twofold. One is, yes, ARPA-E wants to look at unique technologies, but we also want to look at how we do government financing, government grant making, government cooperation, and how we work to make sure that we're not taking 18 months to get a specific grant or award out the door, that we can do it in a more timely fashion. And I think that's one of the responsibilities of an advanced research projects agency, is to not just worry about how you do what the technology is, but how you do the financing, how you do the partnerships, and how you interact with the private sector. And the United States, again, is blessed to have this vibrant private sector that is leading the way around the world. And we need to be working with it, not against it. And I think that's the key to making sure that we don't have to wait decades to put new generation online, that we can do it in a more timely fashion to match the need that is now.
I want to talk a little bit about cost and pricing.
Sure.
Right. Breakthrough innovations often come at premiums. So it's always about how do we bring exciting capabilities forward, but not raise rates. We're in a kind of an inflationary period right now, economy wide, but also with costs for electricity. So I'm not asking you to pick favorite children between SMRs, enhanced geothermal, conductor, long duration storage, although maybe we'll talk a little bit about some of those fun areas. But just generally, how do we bring prices down with these advanced capabilities?
Well, I think, affordability is at the forefront of everything we're talking about right now at the White House, at the Department of Energy, making sure that we can reverse, if we go back to some of that, we're in an attitude of additional power for the country, not less. And over the past few years, there's been some pretty damaging decisions made across the utility and power generation sector of taking plants offline that were unnecessary and that were premature, and making sure that those can be put back on in a timely fashion. We're talking about firing back old large-scale nuclear plants across the country. That's something that I don't think anybody saw a decade ago. And so making sure that we can enable that type of activity is very important. But in general, ensuring that, again, we're adding to the potential power generation, and then we're continuing to put those research dollars towards things that we know can move the needle. Incremental change is not going to fix this problem. We need major activities and major capabilities to come online sooner than later, and that's what we're working on at ARPA-E.
So again, don't need to have you pick your favorite kids here, but just what sort of thoughts would you be excited about? I mentioned enhanced geothermal. You've already talked about going past 400 degrees Celsius. We haven't talked much about SMRs, but SMRs are, finally maybe having a day and start showing up in the industry. Advanced conductor, there's the Spark initiative to try to put $2 billion towards actually getting advanced conductor out there in the industry. I just saw a session a bit ago, Form Energy made its announcement with Google and Excel, long duration storage. Maybe it's here. What are you excited about?
I'm excited about all of those things, and ARPA-E is going to continue to explore those things and others in the white space. But I think if you look back over the last 12 years, particularly, ARPA-E has had an outsized impact in the fusion industry. There are a number of companies that owe their success and their creation directly to ARPA-E funding in the fusion space. And we've got an amazing ecosystem of great fusion startups, dozens, in fact, around the country that is unmatched anywhere else in the world.
And why do you think it's not 20 years away?
I think because it's exponentially moving faster. We're going to spotlight it, and we're going to make sure people are paying attention. And it's no longer just a kind of science experiment over here. There are companies, I'm not going to name any specific companies on right now, but that are no live building plants and opportunities for fusion research that didn't exist outside of the laser ignition facility out in Lawrence Livermore and Iter in the south of France. And now those capabilities are coming online. And I think the research, the knowledge, and the development is going to move at a much higher pace than we've seen in the past. ARPA-E we've invested roughly $134 million with an M over the past 12 years in fusion. And again, I can count at least four private companies that have come out of that. And probably the most prolific and exciting company here in the United States, the CEO will tell you, they probably wouldn't exist in their current form if it wasn't for ARPA-E funding. And so not only do I think that that's an exciting opportunity in fusion in general, but it's a place that ARPA-E has fostered unlike any other industry, and we really want to help it to continue to be successful.
Tired of costly grid upgrades and unpredictable demand? Virtual Peaker's AI-powered virtual power plant software empowers utilities to maximize the value of distributed energy resources. The cutting-edge platform optimizes DER operations, enhances grid stability, and unlocks new revenue streams. Learn more at virtual-peaker.com. Now back to our episode.
Well, two more questions here. And I think you got it actually a little bit at this one with your last remarks, but tracking innovation can be really difficult. How do you guys do it? And how do we know when we're making progress? Is it, just a step change, or is there a way to like balance qualified versus quantified tracking of progress?
So to that point, we try to track as well as we possibly can at ARPA-E so that we know what worked, what didn't work, what we should do better in the future. And we do that through a number of different metrics. I don't know if there's one metric that is the silver bullet answer to that question of what success look like. Because take, for instance, if you talk about spin out companies, well, if every research issue and every project that we're financing becomes a private company, then what was the government doing here in the first place if that was that successful? And are we being risky enough in our investments and appropriately enough in our investments? But then if nothing works, well, that's not the answer either. And you can do everything from studying how many journal articles get written based on our research, how many patents are put out, which we track all of this, by the way, how much follow-on funding comes from private industry to our companies and to our projects and programs that we do. So there's a number of different ways to answer that question of what success looks like. But I think generally moving all those numbers in a positive direction is the answer, right? We want more spin out companies. We want more ecosystem development. We want more follow-on funding to go to these organizations that are changing the world. We want more patents. So we track it, but there's not one. I can tell you why one isn't the answer and why it is the answer on each one of our 10 metrics that we track.
So my last question is going to be a bit of a specific one, actually. Usually we end with a high level one, but it seems like innovation often comes in waves in this industry, either with a leader or some technical expertise or an acute need. So it almost maybe has fits and starts. But how do you embed almost like a culture or a mindset or not in a side organization, but across an entity, this idea that innovation and trekking it forward is so critical? How can we do that as an industry?
Well, I think you're already seeing it. One you hit on, which is the need, right? We're seeing a need that wasn't here a decade or 2 decades ago. And so I think there's a mindset that's changed in who's coming into the energy industry. It's not just the stale old energy industry. This even conference here at CeraWeek looks totally different than it would have 2 decades ago or even a decade ago. So I think first off is that spirit of innovation is there because of the need. But then the time we're in the country is kids want to build rockets again and go to space and do cool, deep tech science. Our most successful entrepreneurs in the country are people that are tackling hard problems. They're not just financing a VC or something to that effect. They're really getting after it. And so I think the mind change has occurred. And I think we're going to continue to see a generation grow up that's excited about building hard tech for hard problems to do big things. You're already seeing it at universities. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, not every university had an entrepreneur center or a tech transfer office. Now they all do because people want to come. They want to cross-pollinate with different areas of business and hard tech and create the next big thing and be the next Tesla and be the next Blue Origin and be the next exciting company. And so I think that is going to maintain an era of technology development, of investing in technology, and of really amazing things coming out of the next generation and the current generation of students that are getting their PhDs, that are working on these big problems. And we want to be the front door for that at the Department of Energy with our 17 national labs that are doing some of the most amazing work that is being done anywhere in the world. These are extremely excited, motivated, and talented individuals who are doing, in my opinion, one of the best things they possibly can, and one of the most noble things, which is they're putting their talent, time, and effort towards the benefit of their American families and for humankind to solve these big issues and big problems.
Conor, thank you for being on with us. It's a pleasure. And thank you for your service at ARPA-E.
Awesome.
DOE.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks again to our season sponsor, Virtual Peaker. If you enjoy Grid Pulse, please follow us on your favorite podcast platform, give us a like or a review, and tell your colleagues. You can listen to all episodes and learn more about our efforts to advance the grid at gridforward.org.